Alright, so in today's video we are going to be looking at 5 timeless fragrances, meaning that these fragrances are not only here to stay right now, but they're here to stay for a while. Probably even like soon to be fathers will be giving their kids when they become in high school maybe, or in college, maybe that long even. I feel like these fragrances are going to stay for a while, for people 30 years from now, for children that are becoming adults. They're gonna be there. Their DNA is just gonna stay, and I don't feel like these fragrances are gonna fall out of time. So to start off the list, Jean Paul Gaultier La Mel Parfum. So not specifically La Mel Parfum, but that whole La Mel line. That DNA from La Mel, I believe, has been around from the 80s. Correct me if I'm wrong. So they really got their stuff together for La Mel when they first released it, because I don't think anybody expects fragrance to stay for that long. But that's the point of this video, and that's why I think La Mel, the whole line, is gonna stay for a while, and it's very timeless. These are not in any specific order, but number 2 on the list, just to keep this going one by one, is Spice Bomb by Viktor and Rolf. Spice Bomb, I don't think at any point people will get tired of, especially the Spice Bomb Extreme version. But let's just say the Extreme gets discontinued and they just have this one. I hope they don't discontinue this and just keep their night vision and infrared flankers, because those flankers are just going too far off this DNA, and they're not giving this DNA a nice fair shot. This DNA, I mean, it's spices, but in the most aromatic way. There's spices, but it's all like through a way where it's not too invasive. It's all like just spreads so nicely. It's a nice fragrance, and the spices mixture in this, it comes off very aromatic, but it's very nice. It's a great fragrance. So Spice Bomb, I think, is here to stay for a while. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but this idea was submitted by a subscriber. I will put their comment up if I haven't already. And I would like anybody else that has an idea to submit it down below. I'll be happy to try to make any video idea possible if I do have the fragrances for it. Sometimes if it's trying to get a new fragrance, that might take a while, because I gotta actually save up and then buy it. If it's not expensive, it might be easier. We have Dior Savage on my number 3 spot. This fragrance, even though it gets hated, bringing the whole ambroxan mixed with bergamot type of DNA and pepper, it brought that whole thing, I feel, really put it in the light and just made a lot of fragrances lean in that direction, which is not a great thing, because I like uniqueness, I like variability in fragrances. I don't like owning this stuff that smell like another thing, unless it's for a video, like comparing a cheap fragrance for a more expensive one. But I always find myself then not liking the expensive one as much when there's a cheaper version of it, and it makes me regret purchasing the more expensive one. I should have just purchased the clone and just not purchased the the original or the more expensive one. That's what I don't like about buying similar smelling fragrances, especially if they're cheaper. But it always does help to kind of save the original and just use the clones. That's what I sometimes do, because I'm like, why am I even wasting sprays from, like, for example, Creed Aventus, when I can just use Club de Nuit Intense Man and it will smell like it, and I will preserve my Creed Aventus. But that's enough of a talk. I side ranted there. With Dior Savage, even though it gets hated on, this DNA, I mean, it brought something to the table, and I believe it's going to stay for a while. Maybe not Dior Savage in particular, but that whole DNA, I feel like, will definitely be a staple of time for somebody out there. When I first got introduced to Dior Savage, I just loved smelling this stuff. It was so addictive. But this was like 4 years ago, I think. So it's been a while, but this fragrance is still around. It's still kicking. Maybe not the EDT, but the elixir, everybody's talking about it. And I just ordered myself a bottle. Yeah, it's pretty expensive stuff. I did smell it at a Sephora, but I didn't really get anything out of it. But then I smelt it at a Macy's and I got something out of it. So I was like, all right, let me just get this fragrance. Kind of disappointed me the first time, and then I liked it the second time I smelt it. So I was like, all right, let me get this because I'll probably like it now, because I did enjoy smelling it. But I couldn't. The problem with department stores is that sometimes the fragrances don't hit. I don't know if it's just because it's sprayed on a paper, but it just doesn't project as much, or you don't get a good sense of the smell when I smell it at a department store. And it could be due to them just, the fragrance just sitting there for a while. I don't know, but let me know if you guys know. Because sometimes I would smell a fragrance at, like, let's say, I'm not throwing shade on Sephora, but like, that's just an example. I would smell a fragrance at Sephora, I would then purchase it, and when I get it and I smell it again, I'm like, wow, that smells way better. I'm like getting everything from the package versus when I smell it at Sephora, it's like I can barely smell it. So I don't know if it's got to do with environmental stuff. Maybe they have too much light on theirs or whatever, but I just don't smell them as much. And by the way, I'm sorry I'm ranting so much in this video. These topics are just coming up, and I might as well say them on a video like this, because this video I really enjoyed creating. I enjoyed picking out these fragrances for. These fragrances all have a big staple in my fragrance experience, and that's why I feel like they're here to stay for a while. Not only just because they smell like they're here to stay for a while. Each one of these fragrances has basically a meaning and something they brought into the fragrance world. And I think just by that on its own makes them more likely to stay for a while. Unless people get tired of them because so many brands copy them, that could be a very reasonable possibility. But if that doesn't happen, these fragrances are here to stay for a while. Dior Homme Intense is the fourth one on this list. It's the second last. This fragrance, I mean the DNA, that iris lavender combo, the way it just comes off, I know every time I smell this, I just think of, oh, it's a lipsticky smell. But then I just sometimes really appreciate the fragrance. Sometimes feel like it's just the right fragrance for that mood. If I sometimes reach for it, I'm like, yeah, this was the right fragrance to pick today. Yeah, it just sometimes kind of gets annoying, but I feel like the DNA is always something someone can reach for, especially during the fall and winter. It smells like a very timeless fragrance, something that doesn't get too old. It doesn't smell more leaning to older folks, and it doesn't smell too young. It's kind of in the middle, but someone that's young can rock it, and someone that's old can rock it. And it's not got really an age specific time to use this fragrance, even though it is probably better for older people. It's not that, you know, teenager DNA of like Dior Savage, 1 million. It's not that kind of fragrance. It's more sophisticated, but I think still, with that being said, it's a timeless fragrance. Alright, the last one on this list, it's the most probably talked about fragrance in the last at least 5 years, at least since I've been part of the fragrance community. When I first joined, I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe 6 even. That's when I first started busting out YouTube vids about fragrances. A couple months in to the fragrance journey, I started getting Creativentus talks. I was seeing them, I was purchasing samples. I was like, what's this whole batch stuff about? What's going on with this fragrance? Why is everyone talking about it? And I was like, what? It's $300? Oh my god. Wow. So I was like, if I can get my hands on a Creativentus, that would be really awesome. It took a while. It took about 2 years to like actually bought this, I think. It's still very worth it, even though it's pretty expensive. And I don't know, these days I'm just less recommending it to people just because Club de Nuit Intense Man has proven its ability to really smell like this one. The only difference is that you just don't get the quality of the ingredients as much, but it really is like a 95% clone of Creativentus. So it's really similar. But what I like about this for me, it's just, it adds more to my journey. Times I was testing this, smelling different batches, and it really was one of the first fragrances that when I smelt it, I was like, wow, And not because of all the hype, even though that did kind of help me being like 16 and smelling a fragrance that everyone's talking about. Of course, I'm gonna be way more excited, but I still could see what people were talking about. Usually, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not with it 100%, but with this one right here, I was with it and I was into it, and that was the end of my wallet. And I kept spending after that, thinking, you know, if 300 for a fragrance is good, maybe a $280 fragrance was good too. Maybe a 250. Maybe why don't I just start buying more expensive stuff and just break the bank? That's what happened after that. I started looking more into niche, which are generally more expensive, and yeah, that took away quite a few digits. Yeah. For the price, it's not that great, to be honest. I would definitely take over Club de Nuit for the price. But if you don't care, if you're like, I don't really want Creed Aventus, I don't want to get the original of something, I just want to smell, you know, like Creed Aventus, let me just get the clone. Exactly. Get yourself the clone. That's way better. But if you're interested in collecting, you're more like, I just want to have a bottle just to have it, then go for this Creed Aventus. Great fragrance. It's going to be here for a while, I believe. A lot of fragrances are becoming really similar to it, but that's just, I think, amplifying how strong this fragrance is and how much of an impact it makes. So that's been it. That's been the whole video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I'll see you guys soon.